Michigan's $10 million Hail Mary for Bryce Underwood. Will it work? It's Locked on LSU. Let's get it.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. And if you're on YouTube, smash that like button. As a reminder, the best way to help us grow is to comment below. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. DJ Lagway will play for Florida against LSU. Billy Napier confirmed that on Thursday evening. We'll talk about the impact. Brian Kelly updates the preparation, the final preparation for the University of Florida. But I want to begin with a story that on Thursday got the entire recruiting world and much of the college football world in a stir when it was reported by On3 that Michigan is preparing to offer the number one quarterback in the country, the number one player in the country, Bryce Underwood, $10.5 million as an NIL offering to join the Wolverines, to flip from LSU to Michigan. Will it work? The short answer is no. No, it will not. And I think this is a layered conversation. So if you've been here with us, if you're an everydayer, thank you for that. But we've talked about Bryce Underwood at various points throughout this process. We've talked about Bryce Underwood when Dave Portnoy said that he would be Michigan's quarterback guy. And then when there was another Michigan media person, don't even know who it was, that he'd throw another $1 million on top of it, in addition to Dave Portnoy's $1 to $3 million. Then we talked about it when Connor Stallions was hired at Belleville, Bryce Underwood's high school. And now we're talking about it again. I think what we're seeing is Michigan trying to save face with their fan base. Let me explain. Right now, Michigan is 5-5 under Sharon Moore, his first season as the head coach. That is unacceptable. They're 1 year off they're the defending national champion. Jim Harbaugh, of course, and 15 players went to the NFL draft. But you still have a ton of talent on the defensive side of the ball there at the University of Michigan. Mel Kiper put out his latest big board this week, and he's got 3 Michigan defensive players in the top 15 for the draft. That's an incredible amount of talent. But the offense has been a struggle. As a matter of fact, as far as passing offense goes, there's only 4 teams in college football who are worse this year at throwing the football than Michigan. And 2 of them are service academies. So Michigan is very bad on offense. They're having a subpar standard by their season, by their standard, most any team standard. And the number one player in the country, this sort of transcendent talent at quarterback, is 30 minutes from your campus. And he's committed to LSU. He's going to get on a plane and fly to Baton Rouge and not even go to Ann Arbor. If you're Michigan, you got to go all in, if nothing else, so you can say to your fans, hey, we tried. Look, we offered this cat $10.5 million. We got Connor Stallions planted on his high school staff. We did everything we could do. We couldn't get him. You can't force someone to go to your school to play for your program. But this allows them in some respects to try to save face. Now, I want to also address the deal itself and give you some context on where LSU is coming from with their NIL offer. So the $10.5 million is eye-popping. And one of the things I've said pretty consistently here is that the only thing that could get Bryce Underwood away from LSU would be the Godfather offer, the offer that you can't refuse. If some team came and dumped a big pile of money on Bryce Underwood, the pile of money you just don't say no to. And this would appear to be that. But let's peel back the layers of the onion. So $10.5 million, that's what everybody's going to focus on. But that's over 4 years. That averages out to a little more than $2.6 million per year. I am not in any way devaluing that because that is an enormous amount of money for darn near any human being walking the face of the earth, let alone a high school senior. Okay. However, most people are assuming Bryce Underwood isn't going to spend 4 years in college, that he's going to be a guy that after year 3 is off to the NFL to make his millions, his tens or hundreds of millions in the NFL. So now that 10.5 gets knocked by a year, and you're talking more 7.8, and this is all pre-tax as well. And it makes that number smaller. Again, still very large numbers. But while I'm told LSU's number isn't as big as that, the gap between what LSU is offering on a per-year basis and what Michigan is offering isn't significant enough to make Bryce Underwood want to flip his commitment from Michigan to LSU for a lot of reasons. He loves Joe Sloan. It's something we've talked about. He's talked about openly. LSU's offensive coordinator, who a week ago was in Michigan watching Bryce Underwood's high school football game. And then a week later, Bryce Underwood is in Baton Rouge. He has taken no less than 8 trips to Baton Rouge with his family on his dime. Okay, that's before his official visit. Bryce Underwood hasn't been to the University of Michigan since July of 2023. He's not stepped foot on that campus since Sharon Moore's been the head coach. So he's paid his way for his family to come to Baton Rouge 8 times. And in a year and a half, he hasn't stepped foot on a campus 30 minutes away. That's a pretty clear indicator. And like we've been talking about, this is a kid who was 12 years old when LSU won the national championship in 2019. Joe Burrow throwing for 5,600 yards, being the number 1 overall pick. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase doing the gritty, the get the gat at the White House. Everything about that team, from the hype videos to how they blew everybody out and the amount of money all those dudes have made in the NFL. And then you followed up a few years later with another Heisman Trophy winning quarterback who's the number 2 pick in the draft and is tearing up the NFL. What LSU has sold Bryce Underwood on is, look, you could take a little bit more money up front in NIL, but if you go to Michigan, are they really going to develop you as a quarterback and get you to be the guy who's making a $40 million rookie deal and then potentially a $400 million second contract in the NFL? Or are you going to go there and not throw the football and be one of the worst passing offenses in the NFL and see your draft stock plummet? That's what they sold Bryce Underwood on. And clearly it's worked. I mean, that young guy showed up in Baton Rouge with a diamond-studded LSU Tiger head logo chain. He had adoring fans chanting his name in Tiger Stadium. By all accounts, even with the terrible game, he had a great visit. He's been here plenty. And maybe even the kicker, as I'm recording this on Thursday night, there was an Instagram account that posted a graphic that said Bryce Underwood is likely to decline Michigan's $10.5 million offer. Bryce Underwood shared that graphic to his Instagram story. Now, he later deleted it, but the damage was done because that had been copied and screenshotted and reshared on social media by dozens of accounts, and it's been seen by everyone at this point. The bottom line is I feel a lot like this, about this, like I do about the MLB draft. And if you're familiar with how it works, you'll understand this analogy. But college baseball teams sign players all the time. And players tell coaches, I'm coming, I'm coming, I'm coming. And you got to sweat out the draft. And when the draft comes, ultimately a guy may say, man, my number is $3 million. I'm just throwing out something hypothetical. If a team gives me $3 million, I'll sign. Well, are they going to stick to that number? You know, what if a team calls and says, I'm not going to give you 3, but I'm going to give you 2.65? Well, does the kid take 2.65? Or does he show up on campus, play 3 years, and then try to get $9 million? That's what Dylan Cruz did. Listen, there's not a bad answer for Bryce Underwood. I mean, he's a 5-star, the number 1 player in the country, and wherever he goes, he's going to get 7 figures in NIL money, which is incredible and good for him. You can have all the debates you want about if he deserves it, if high school players are worth that without taking a snap. No different than in the NFL. You're giving millions of dollars to rookies that have never taken a snap. But it's the calculated risk that you take. And Bryce Underwood plays the most important position in organized team sports. And by all accounts, he is a generational talent. So you got to do what you got to do to get him. And it looks like LSU is going to keep Bryce Underwood in this class. The 3-year relationship they have built is far outweighing the 3 months that Michigan is really trying to put the full court press on Bryce Underwood as they're suffering through a really difficult year one here under Sharon Moore. So let not your heart be troubled. LSU is in great shape with Bryce Underwood. By all accounts, he seems to be locked in on LSU. And the only thing that could change that is the Godfather offer. And friends, I'm here to tell you, the offer that Michigan gave may give you a little sticker shock, but when you peel back the layers of the onion, it's not what it appears to be. And LSU appears to be in an awesome spot to land Bryce Underwood and one of the best classes in the history of LSU football. So that's the future. What about the now? On Saturday, LSU is going to play the University of Florida. Brian Kelly gave some final updates before that game. We'll hear from the coach next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Today's episode first, let me tell you about 5 Hour Energy. My apologies, I went a little bit out of order there. Our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby. It's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdowns, celebrations, or an agonizing second overtime, which is why they created the Stan the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel. The energy shot made just for super fans like us. The fans who are the first in the parking lot, the last to leave. We see you. 5 Hour Energy knows no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stan the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to help keep you fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with a 5 Hour Energy. Available on 5hourenergy.com and shipped nationwide. Brian Kelly met with reporters on Thursday after LSU's practice, the final preparation for the game against the University of Florida. And they covered a lot of ground with Brian Kelly. Listen, let's be very honest. Coming out of the game against Alabama, it's very clear that your biggest issues are turnovers at the quarterback position and defending the run, in particular, a running quarterback. A big part of that on Saturday was poor safety play. We went over the Pro Football Focus grades, and that validated what your eyes showed you. Among the worst graded defenders, both at tackling and in run defense, were your safeties. So how have they improved and worked to improve the safety play this week?
Yeah, I mean, we put the green dot in the safety's helmet a couple of weeks ago to assist. So the green dot went from the linebacker's position to Greg Penn, and we put it in Sage's helmet to address that specifically. But if you're talking about the specifics in the game, there was a lot of space, and our safeties had to be really, really good at being inside out on the ball carrier and making tackles with too much air. And what we have to do collectively is shrink that down a lot more. That means better defensive line play, linebacker play, and initial force play, so they don't have to make a tackle from the size of this room, with a guy 235 pounds coming up through that hole. We need to shrink that down. So their play will be better because we've instituted the green dot, because we can get them some information. Their play will be better because the entire unit recognizes how important it is to give them a better opportunity in those tackling situations. And I thought that they were really good and focused this week.
The green dot, remember, is the helmet comm, and that shuts out off 15 seconds to go on the play clock. So that means Blake Baker will be on the headset and will be able to talk to Sage Ryan up until 15 seconds before the play clock expires. So in some instances, that could even be up to the snap of the football if the team is going fast, the offense is going fast, and they snap it before you get within 15 seconds of the play clock. So that's one benefit. Now, Brian Kelly said a couple of weeks ago he didn't specify if it was before the A&M game or literally a couple of weeks. So it would have been before the open date, so you had it for Alabama. Either way, clearly it didn't help. The other thing that was interesting is he talked about shrinking the space, right? You expect your safeties to be the last line of defense. And what he's saying there is, look, if you could slow the quarterback or you can narrow the space of the field where he has to run, then your safeties can help. That's much easier than if he has a free run off the edge or through the line and you're out in space, and it makes it much easier or much more difficult to tackle in space. And that does go back to your front seven and your linebacker play. Your front seven clogging holes and your linebacker slowing down and putting big hits on the quarterback, whoever the ball carrier is. And this goes back to what Brian Kelly said after the spring game, when he said the one spot they were looking at in the portal was defensive tackle. And while Gio Paez, I think, is really given great effort, and Paris Shand at 270 pounds, kicking inside and playing tackle is largely overmatched. While those guys, I think, are doing their best and playing their best, the deficiencies at every level of the defense are starting to show up, especially when you play an offense like you did against Alabama and like when you saw Marcel Reed go into the ball game. It's very clear that's just where LSU's deficiency is defensively. They have been, however, quite good defending the pass in coverage, and they've been very good at rushing the quarterback. So, depending on what style of offense you're going to face, I think depends on how good this LSU defense might be able to be. Now, the other side of it, of course, is what they're playing for. And that's, as we've explained here, mathematically, you're not still alive. You have a great shot to get to Atlanta to play for the SEC championship. All you need, and I say all you need, is if you win out, if Georgia beats Tennessee, and if Arkansas beats Missouri in the final play-in date, you win a 6-team tiebreaker, and you're in Atlanta playing for the SEC championship and the right to go to the college football playoff. And Brian Kelly was asked if he's talked about that with his team.
Priority is we need to clean up our own things that we need to get better at. That's the priority. But you also want to be able to say, hey, look, it's all still in front of you, right? You win out. You got an opportunity to still be in the playoffs, but also you have a great opportunity to finish this season with 6-2 in the SEC, and that's pretty darn good. To go 18 wins over 3 years in the SEC is a lot, and so these guys understand that. But it started with, here's what we need to do to be better, so we can even think about those things. And then, by the way, if you keep playing and you play better and you play more consistent, the door's still open for you. It has not closed.
As we've talked about here, and if you missed that episode, you can go back a few episodes and you can get the scenario in more detail of what LSU needs to unfold, how that tiebreaker would work. But ultimately, you're an LSU fan this weekend. Obviously, you want LSU to win, but you are a big-time Georgia Bulldog fan, and you want South Carolina also to beat Missouri, while Alabama and LSU both played South Carolina. So a South Carolina win would help both LSU and Alabama as far as the cumulative SEC winning percentage, opponents' winning percentage. Alabama played Missouri, so that would be another loss in that column for Mizzou. So just something worth keeping an eye on as you move into this weekend. And obviously for LSU, if they're going to be more consistent, if they're going to play better on the offensive side, that starts with Garrett Nussmeier protecting the football. And Brian Kelly was asked how Garrett Nussmeier's week of preparation went.
This has been, I've spent a lot of time with him this week. I think he's been thoughtful, intentional. He's taken leadership. I just like the way he's locked in this week. And, My experience tells me that when a quarterback is this locked in, you might want to watch the game, because I think he's going to have a heck of a game.
That's incredibly encouraging. What I would also say is we have a large enough sample size now. We can look at the 9 games LSU has played, and Garrett Nussmeier has thrown at least one interception in 6 of the 9 games you have played. He did not throw an interception against Nicholls. He did not throw an interception against UCLA, and he did not throw an interception at Arkansas. He threw one against Southern Cal, which was the Hail Mary at the end of the game. It wasn't a Hail Mary, but he had to force the ball. The time was running out and the game was over. He threw one that counted against South Carolina. The touchdown, of course, got called back, but the interception stood. It was Nick Emenwari who intercepted him near the goal line. Sound familiar? The 2 ugly interceptions against South Alabama. One, as LSU was going in to score to start the second half. The two against Ole Miss, one was a deflected ball, and one was a bad read for Garrett Nussmeier, again near the goal line. The three against Texas A&M, we don't need to litigate. We saw them all and how that changed the game. And of course, two against Alabama, one that cost you at the start of the second half, and one that was at the end of the game when CJ Daniels fell down. But the bottom line is, when you have 11 interceptions and you've thrown them all in 6 games, and if you even want to say 10, if you want to look at the Southern Cal interception, say, well, that was end game scenario, no biggie, whatever. That's 10 interceptions in 5 games. Well, I mean, I could do the math, and that's not great. If Garrett Nussmeier protects the ball, we've seen what he can be offensively. You're going against a Florida defense that's among the worst in the country against the pass and is injured in the secondary. We learned also on Thursday that Florida's going to be without another one of their starting linebackers. That means as many as 8 starters are going to be out of this game for the University of Florida. This is a game where you should go on the road and handle your business. But the way it can unravel on you is if you start throwing the ball to the other team. And so Brian Kelly's intuition is right there, and Garrett Nussmeier has a big day. The other quarterback we've been waiting on a decision is DJ Lagway, his availability. We know the answer. We'll talk about it next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. As we put a button here on today's episode of Locked on LSU, we did get word on Friday evening that DJ Lagway will be available for Florida against LSU Saturday, 2:30 Central Time in the Swamp. The quick recap, if you're not familiar, DJ Lagway, the #1 quarterback in the country of the 2024 class in his true freshman season out of the state of Texas. He replaced Graham Mertz, who suffered a season-ending injury. And Mertz, when Mertz went out, Lagway has been starting since. And Lagway's played in 8 games. But we saw Lagway 2 weeks ago against the University of Georgia, and he went down in the second quarter while Florida had a 10-3 lead, by the way. He went down in the second quarter on a 3-yard run, and he hurt his hamstring. The injury was so severe that he had to be carted off the field. He missed last week's game against the University of Texas, a blowout game where Aiden Warner started, a freshman who transferred from Yale. And boy, that was a disaster. He threw about 50% of his passes, about 130 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Lagway coming back is a major boost because you're talking about a 5-star and a supreme talent, 6'3", 240 pounds, who can run and can certainly spin it. There's a reason he was a 5-star. He is everything. He is the mold of what Billy Napier wants in his offense. The problem for Lagway is, if you've never had a hamstring injury, it doesn't even matter. The New Orleans Pelicans just put Jose Alvarado on the shelf for 6 weeks because of a hamstring injury. Marshawn Lattimore, now formerly of the New Orleans Saints, now the Washington Commanders, has missed 2 consecutive games now with a hamstring injury. If you are an explosive, dynamic player like DJ Lagway is, it is impossible to believe that he will be anywhere near 100% 14 days after suffering that hamstring injury. And look, I can point to a year ago where Jaden Daniels got concussed against the University of Alabama. He just took mental reps all week before they played, incidentally, Florida a year ago. And then Jaden had his Heisman moment against the University of Florida. The 2 long touchdown runs, became one of the first player in college football history to throw for 300 and run for 200 in the same game. I mean, it was an amazing day to see what unfolded. But Jaden Daniels was a veteran, experienced quarterback. DJ Lagway hasn't really practiced in 2 weeks, and he's a true freshman. It's hard to believe that a limited DJ Lagway is going to go out there against this LSU defense and just slice and dice. If he were 100% healthy, He has the skill set with his athletic ability and his size to hurt LSU with his feet. I just don't know that that's going to be the reality on Saturday for a guy that's coming off a hamstring injury. And what you'd really hate to see for a young player like that who's so talented is if he tries to give it a go and tries to ramp it up when he's not ready, and then he ends up further injuring it. Soft tissue, the only thing to do is rest it. And 14 days from injury to playing again isn't exactly an awful lot of rest. The best game DJ Lagway had throwing was in week 2 against Samford. That was his most extensive action. He threw for 456 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. But a week later, they got into conference play. They lost to Texas A&M 33-20. Lagway was just 6 of 13 for 54 yards, and he ran 4 times for -20. So it's been a different reality for Lagway against the Southeastern Conference than it was in the pre-conference. That is to be expected. I think DJ Lagway is going to be an awesome college football player over the course of his career. This is just a very unenviable circumstance for a true freshman, having missed a couple of weeks due to injury, now trying to play hobbled against an LSU team that has an awful lot still on the table. So what version of DJ Lagway do we see? We'll find out pretty early in the game on Saturday with LSU in Florida. Okay, thanks so much for being here with us. If you are on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. Please leave your comments as well. And be sure to let a friend know that if they love the Tigers, we got you here every single day for Locked On LSU, your team every day.